بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأولين والآخرين، سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين، سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. ما بعد، فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. لقد كان لكم في رسول الله أسوة حسنة. آمنت بالله، صدق الله العلي العظيم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا ومولانا محمد وأصحاب سيدنا ومولانا محمد وبارك وسلم وصل عليه. الصلاة والسلام عليك يا سيدي يا رسول الله، وعلى آلك وأصحابك يا سيدي يا حبيب الله. الصلاة والسلام عليك يا سيدي يا رسول الله، وعلى آلك وأصحابك يا سيدي يا نبي الله. الصلاة والسلام عليك يا سيدي يا رسول الله، وعلى آلك وأصحابك يا سيدي يا شفيع المذنبين. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. After praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and sending salutations, peace and blessings upon the best of creation, the jewel of creation, the crown of creation, the beloved of Allah Almighty, the coolness to our eyes, the purpose of our lives, the reviver of our hearts, the inspirer to our minds, the awakener of our souls, the most honored one, the most praised one, the most revered one, undoubtedly the most beautiful one. None other than Sayyiduna wa Nabiyuna Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa barak wa sallam. Having a role model in our life is something that exists naturally in humans. Whether we are young or old, if we was asked a question, who is your role model? Then you'd get different answers from different people. But those who are religious, their answers would be the Prophet ﷺ, the Sahaba, the Tabi'een, Atba'u Tabi'een, Salihin, Shuhada, Awliya, Ulama. These are our role models. You ask other youngsters, young people who aren't practicing on the deen, who is your role model? And he might say, I have a role model like Cristiano Ronaldo or Lionel Messi, or I look up to Wayne Rooney, or I look up to Rick Ross, or 50 Cent, or Tupac, or Biggie, or any of these rappers. I look up to singers, I look up to gangsters, I look up to bad boys, I look up to wannabes, I look up to chillers, I look up to rich people, I look up to people who have mansions, I look up to people, and I like following these kinds of people. These are my role models. You ask other people, they might say, I don't have a role model. I am my own role model. He might just say to you, I am my own role model. I don't need no role model. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent to mankind the best role models. And those role models are the prophets of Allah Almighty. Those are the Anbiya alayhimu salam. From Sayyidina Adam alayhi salam all the way to Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, we find the best role models. We find the best role models and examples. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran tells us this. Why Allah Almighty sends us role models? What is the purpose? What is the reason behind those role models coming? Allah Almighty said in the glorious Quran in Surah Al-Mumtahina, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِيهِمْ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ لِمَنْ كَانَ يَرْجُو اللَّهَ وَالْيَوْمَ الْآخِرِ وَمَنْ يَتَوَلَّى فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ هُوَ الْغَنِيُّ الْحَمِيدُ. In verse number 6, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِيهِمْ. Certainly for you, you will find in them uswatun hasana. The uswa hasana. You will find in them the best example, the best role model. In who? In the prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِيهِمْ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. Why did Allah send these good role models? Who will there be a purpose for? لِمَنْ كَانَ يَرْجُو اللَّهَ وَالْيَوْمَ الْآخِرِ. For those who hope to meet Allah. And not only who hope to meet Allah, but those individuals who want to stand on the day of judgment. To meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to be on the day of judgment. And then Allah said, وَمَنْ يَتَوَلَّى. And whoever turns away from this, فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ هُوَ الْغَنِيُّ الْحَمِيدُ. Indeed Allah is Al-Ghani Al-Hamid. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is free from any needs. And He is the most worthy of praise. Shah Sahab Agaya. Said Kamran Shah, please come forward. Allah Almighty here said that in them you find the best role models. In another verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam being a good example. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. When Allah Almighty said, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. Certainly you find in the Messenger of Allah Almighty, يعني Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam, uswatun hasana, uswa hasana. Uswa hasana, uswatun hasana means good example, good role model, in simple. A good role model, an example for who? For those people who want to meet Allah. If you want to meet Allah Almighty, then you have the best role model, best example to follow to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is none other than the greatest role model, the greatest example sent to mankind, Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allah Almighty sent these prophets and messengers to guide people, to show them light after they had been in darkness, to warn them, to give them good news, glad tidings. And in order to do that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala built inside, placed inside the prophets, His prophets, from Sayyidina Adam alayhi salam to Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the best characteristics a human can possess. The most perfect characteristics: patience, forbearance, tolerance, piety, forgiveness, mercy, all the best qualities, all the sifat-e-kamila, all the complete, perfect attributes that a human can possess, Allah Almighty placed them inside the prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He placed them inside His prophets. That's why He said, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِيهِمْ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. Certainly you find in them the best qualities, the best role models, the best examples. And we see that. You study the life of the Anbiya alayhi salam, Adam alayhi salam, Yusuf alayhi salam, Ibrahim alayhi salam, Ayyub alayhi salam, Musa alayhi salam, Isa alayhi salam. And what Allah Almighty put them through in terms of tests. Yusuf alayhi salam, his story begins as a young child thrown into a well. And his story ends that he's become the king of Egypt. After such hardship came so much ease. إِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا إِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا. Allah didn't say it once, Allah said it twice. Indeed, after every hardship, with every hardship comes something easy. At the end of a dark tunnel, there is always light. After night falls, comes daybreak. Yani there's always hope. And we learn this in the stories of the Anbiya alayhi salam. These aren't just stories for us to read and buzz off. These are there as stories for us to learn lessons from. That Yusuf alayhi salam is a young child, the most beloved son from the sons of Sayyidina Yaqub alayhi salam. Those sons, other than Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam, were jealous of him, of what he had, the love the father had, and decided to plot against their own brother. Brothers were plotting against their own brother. Yusuf alayhi salam, he had 11 brothers. They were plotting against him. So they decided that we're going to take him out on a trip and we're going to make a lie up, we're going to plot, we're going to smear his shirt with wolf's blood and say the wolf ate Yusuf. But in reality we'll throw him into a well. And he'll stay in the well, and that's it, Yusuf is out of our face, we won't see him, father won't mention him, it's all good. Very long story. But this story is not just a story to read at bedtime. We've left these stories as bedtime stories. If that's if we know these stories, that we read them to our children at bedtime. Instead we tell them a story of Jack and the Beanstalk, or Jack and Jill went up the hill, or we tell them about the, what's that poem that we all learn when we were kids? Not Incy Wincy Spider. The one about the sheep and the, you know, how many,
Baba Black Sheep.
Baba Black Sheep. Have you any more? And he said he's got white beard and he's still young. MashaAllah. Yani, from a young age, this is what we're taught. Baba Black Sheep. Have you any more? Yes sir, yes sir. How many bags?
3 bags.
3 bags, you all know. See, we as youngsters were taught these things. In school we're taught this. When they come home, why don't we teach them طلع البدر علينا من ثنيات الوداع وجب الشكر علينا ما دعا لله داعي مصطفى جاني رحمة الله والسلام. Why don't we teach them Ya Nabi salam alayk, Ya Rasul salam alayk, Ya Habib salam alayk, salawatullahi alayk. We don't teach them these things. But you think you sent them to school and they're going to teach them the Naat of Rasulullah salam? You think they're going to teach them verses of the Quran and say, Anji, right, you've come to school, first thing we'll do is we'll begin the day with the tilawat of the Quran. No. I remember back in the time when we would have assemblies, they'd say, okay, it's an Eid assembly, we'll begin with the tilawat of the Quran, and one of us would go forward and read a bit of Quran, and that's it. That's what used to happen. The one who was the most religious from the students, he would go forward, and he would do tilawat of the Quran. The schools aren't going to teach me and you tilawat and not. As young children, we grow up learning stories about the Anglo-Saxons, Victorians, historians, and all these things. We learn about the Egyptians, the pharaohs, when they ruled the world. We learn about Roman Empire and the Roman history. We study the British Empire and British history. And they don't teach us the Islamic Empire and Islamic history. Why? Because at that time when Europe was in its dark ages, Islam was at its peak. Europe was in its dark ages. They used to fight with one another, kill one another, civil wars. Europe was in smog at that time. And in the Arab world, in the Middle East, in the subcontinent, the nur of Islam was spreading. To the point that Islam entered into Europe through Spain. And alhamdulillah, tomorrow at Gateway to Divine Mercy, a big conference you might have heard of, Qibla Mufassir al-Quran, Sheikh Muhammad Imdad Hussain Pirzada, my ustaz, my sheikh, my teacher. They will be launching a book, I Am a British Muslim. And in there, you will know how Islam came into the United Kingdom. If I ask you, brother, when did Islam come into this country, you probably don't know. You've never gone and studied about it. Not only is it telling us from a political perspective of what our rights are as Muslims, but from a historical perspective of how Islam came into this country. Because you're not going to be taught that in school. They're not going to tell you of how Islam entered into this country. How Abdullah Quilliam came, how these were the first Muslims, whether in Liverpool or in where the first masjid was built inside Woking. They're not going to tell you these things. They're going to teach you about the British Empire, when the British ruled the entire world. And they're going to talk about the Roman Empire. These are the stories we are learning as youngsters growing up. How many stories of the Prophet ﷺ do we know? How many stories of the Quran do we know? Qasasul Quran, Qasasul Anbiya. How many qissas of the prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, qasas? How many stories of the prophets do we know? Do we know Ibrahim alayhi salam's story and how much difficulty he went through? Do you know Adam alayhi salam's story when he was created and Shaitan tested him and he lived in this world for a number of years? Do we know these stories, or are these just stories that we've heard and we put away? My point is that we need to teach our children the stories of the prophets of Allah Almighty. We need to teach them the stories of the Quran, because in school they're being taught everything else. Who's going to teach them Islam then? Who's going to teach them Islam? When they get to 16, 17, they'll forget the Quran they were reading at the age of 6 and 7. Because by the age of 13, we'll get let them go out of the masjid. Oh, no problem. Quran the Parya. He's read the Quran, hasn't he? As long as he's read the Quran, take. How does he know how to do wudu? What's the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ? Important stories from the Quran, lessons learned from the Quran. We're not teaching them these things. I like it, they are more important. It's very important for us to learn stories of the Quran. So, Yusuf alayhi salam's story is a very famous story with many great lessons. Yusuf alayhi salam started in the well, and the story ends where he is the king of Egypt on the throne. And throughout that time, throughout his life, he was tested. Every moment, accused, falsely accused, false allegations, imprisoned, in slavery. Yusuf alayhi salam has seen many hardships. And Allah Almighty said, read these stories. Why? There's a lesson in there for you. So when you go through difficulty and hardship in your life, you can always go back to Yusuf alayhi salam's story and relate. And say, look, the great Prophet of Allah like Yusuf alayhi salam went through so many tests and difficulties. Yar, what am I going through? I missed one mortgage payment and my life's ended. My car's broken down and my life ended. You think this is a test? You think this is a real test? What's the real test? Real test is the test that's going on inside you, but you're ignoring it. You're not even thinking about it. That's the real test going inside your heart right now, what's happening in there. You missing salah, that's the real test for you to perform salah. Ramadan's coming, preparing for it, that's the real test. Not the test of when my next mortgage payment is going to go out from my bank account, or when my next bill is going to go, or where I'm going to earn my next wage. These aren't the real tests. These are just tests of the dunya. What about akhirah? The moment we stepped out from our busy lives and we looked at the state of where we would be in the akhirah, we would think, man, I don't think I'd be in Jannah. Because I've never actually thought about it. Never considered it, never sat there, thought about these things. Life's short. We should think about what's more important. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that in these, la'ibra. There is an ibra, there is a lesson for you to learn in these stories. And that lesson is that even the greatest role models and examples, the best role models, Allah tested them. Allah tested those role models that He sent to mankind. So how would they be role model for me and you if they didn't show that side of it? If they weren't put through tests? For them being put through tests is a way for us to learn and for us to take them as our role models. That's why Allah tested them. Every prophet that came, Sayyidina Ayyub alayhi salam, he had illnesses. People would never go near him. Allah Almighty tested him, cured him. Sayyidina Yunus alayhi salam, how many days he was inside the belly of a whale, in the stomach of a whale. He was tested in darkness. And that's when he said, La ilaha illa anta, subhanaka inni kuntu min al-zalimin. And Allah Almighty rescued him and saved him. Sayyidina Ayyub alayhi salam, he was making du'as. Ibrahim alayhi salam, how many years without a son? Test. How many of us, how many people will say, I can't have children? What shall I do? Look at Zakaria alayhi salam. How many years he made dua for son? Allah then gave him Basharat of Sayyidina Yahya. Allah gave Basharat to Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam of Sayyidina Ismail. They were all tested. These prophets of Allah Almighty didn't have easy lives. They didn't have an easy life. What do you think Allah sent them with an easy life? Their people turned against them. Their people kicked them out of their hometowns and said, out! You have no place in our. But they were so firm in belief of Allah. They were so firm in the belief of Allah Almighty that Allah always helped them. And they always became victorious. After that hardship came ease. Look at the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam went through so many tests. Allah tested them so many times. That's why Allah said, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ. And when He said, فِيهِمْ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ, in them you find the best role model. Here He said, in the messenger of Allah you find the greatest role model. The greatest example. Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam buried their own sons and 3 daughters with their hands. A father has to bury 3 daughters in his own life. How testing can that be for a father? To see their 2 sons passing away in front of them. This is what Rasulullah just a little bit of the test that Allah gave. And why? So that this is a role model for me and you. This is an example for me and you to follow. What do you think? Our master was tested and his ummah is not going to be tested. Aren't we being tested right now? Look what's happening in Iraq. Look at on the brink of a civil war. What's happening in Iraq, in Egypt, in Syria. Look what's happening in Pakistan. Dehshatgardi, suicide, everything that's going around in the Muslim world. Look at what's been happening in Palestine for the last 50, 60 years. Where have we been? Well, how are we relating this to the Prophet ﷺ's life? These are tests. These are tests on an international scale. Then there's tests that we're facing on a daily scale here, living in the United Kingdom. And mostly it's a test with ourselves. We're fighting our egos. We're fighting our nafs, our shaitan inside us. We're trying to defeat our shaitan inside us. It's hard work. It's hard work, and we need to work on that. And we need to look at the best role models. And we need to take examples from their lives and relate to them. Not just look at those stories, read those stories and close the book and leave it on the shelf. Sit down and learn from those stories. First you have to read the stories. You have to understand and study the stories. How often have we read the stories of the Quran? How often have we read stories of the prophets? Qasasul Anbiya, Qasasul Quran? We haven't. How many stories do we know about the awliyaullah? How many stories do we know about what the pious men of Allah and the scholars, the likes of Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Shafi, Ahmad bin Hanbal and Imam Malik alayhimur rahmah wa radiyallahu ta'ala anhum. How many of their stories do we know? You know what Imam Abu Hanifa went through? Sayyidina Imam Abu Hanifa narrations have said that they passed away in prison. In the halat of sujood, they were imprisoned because they didn't take up the post of being the judge of the town. They rejected and the leader put them in prison and said, you have to serve your time. You didn't listen to what I said. Tested. Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal radiyallahu anhu tested. Tested at all times. When the Khalq al-Quran issue arose, that is the Quran created or not created? He said, Kalamullahi ghayr makhluq. The word of Allah is not created. It's not a created entity, it's not created. Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal stood as one mountain, one pillar on his own everybody else succumbed to the aqaid of the Mu'tazila, the misguided sect of that time that believed the Quran was created. Imam Ahmad stood. They would drag Imam Ahmad through the streets. They would take Sayyidina Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal and they would lash him 99 times. They would just lash him for what he believed. They were tested. And in their lives we have examples. Examples for us to follow. In that time of test, did they stop reading Salah? They continued praying. Did they miss their Salah? They never missed their Salah. Sayyidina Ali was tested. Sayyidina Uthman was tested. Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq was tested. Sayyidina Umar was tested. When you become a beloved of Allah, when you get close to Allah Ta'ala, then you're going to be tested. It's part and parcel of being close to Allah. Allah is going to test you to see, is he really close to me? Or is he just showing people? Does he really love me? Or is he just showing people? Because the ones who Allah truly loves and they truly love Allah, Allah tests them. And who are the most tested? The prophets of Allah. Alayhimus salatu wassalam. The prophets of Allah were the most tested. And from them, who was the most tested? It was the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Nabi alayhi salatu wassalam was tested the most from all the prophets of Allah Almighty. And it is through these tests that we find Uswatul Hasan. We find the best role model for me and you to follow. This is what we need to follow today. Not Kim Kardashian and not follow the footballers and singers and actors and actresses. Not to follow the people of the dunya. What role model are they? They're a role model for you to earn money and look good in this dunya. But the role models of Islam are role models not only for the dunya, how to live here, but they are role models that we will stand behind on the day of Qiyamah. They are our role models on the day of Qiyamah. Allah Ta'ala in the Quran, we always make this dua. Ihdina sirat al-mustaqim. Oh Allah, guide us to the straight path. Sirat al-ladina anamta alayhim. The path of those whom you have showered your favors upon. Whom you have had in'am upon. You've had great favors upon them. And then Allah Almighty explains who are the ones that we've had our favors upon. Allah Almighty in the Quran said, he who obeys Allah and His Rasul. Those who obey Allah and His Rasul. فَأُولَٰئِكَ مَعَ الَّذِينَ أَنْعَمَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِمْ مِنَ النَّبِيِّينَ وَالصِّدِّيقِينَ وَالشُّهَدَاءِ وَالصَّالِحِينَ وَحَسُنَ أُولَٰئِكَ رَفِيقًا. Allah Almighty in the Quran said, وَمَنْ يُطِعِ اللَّهَ وَالرَّسُولَ. That he who obeys Allah and His Prophet. What is the jaza of this shart? The one who obeys Allah and His Prophet, فَأُولَٰئِكَ. Then he will be. Then those people who obey Allah and His Rasul, where will they be? مَعَ الَّذِينَ أَنْعَمَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِمْ. They will be with those whom Allah has had His favors upon, who Allah has blessed, who Allah has favored. See in the first ayat, اهدنا الصراط المستقيم, صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم. أنعمت عليهم. That you have favored. You have sent your favors upon them, you blessed them. And here Allah is explaining, okay, I'm going to tell you who I favored and blessed. What did Allah say? فَأُولَٰئِكَ مَعَ الَّذِينَ أَنْعَمَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِمْ. With those who Allah has had His khas in'am upon. Allah Almighty has had His special blessings upon. Who? مِنَ النَّبِيِّينَ, the prophets. وَالصِّدِّيقِينَ, the most truthful. وَالشُّهَدَاءِ وَالصَّالِحِينَ, the martyrs and the pious people. And then Allah Almighty said what? وَحَسُنَ أُولَٰئِكَ رَفِيقًا. Those people, Nabi, Siddiq, Shuhada, Shaheed, and Salih, Salihin, Anbiya, Siddiqeen, these are who? حَسُنَ أُولَٰئِكَ رَفِيقًا. They are the best friends that you can have. The best companions you can have. The best people you can follow. Allah is telling you in the Quran, who are your role models and examples? The prophets of Allah. Look in their lives and follow them. Take them as your role model. Study the life of Ibrahim alayhi salam and what we can become like Ibrahim alayhi salam. You should want to become like him. Study the life of Musa alayhi salam, Isa alayhi salam, Yusuf alayhi salam, Nuh alayhi salam. Study the life of Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam and want to become like him. Siddiqeen. Allahu Akbar. Our sisters, your sisters. Our daughters, your daughters. Our mothers, your mothers. Give them the role model of Sayyidah Maryam alayhi salam. Allah Almighty describes her as a Siddiqah. She is the most truthful. She never ever ever spoke a lie in her life. Not one lie. That's why she was so pure. She was chosen over all the women of the world. She was the one who was carrying Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam, the chosen prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allahu Akbar. Siddiqeen. Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq never spoke a lie, always spoke the truth. Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. You will be with those who, which role models? Allah saying, be with the prophets. You obey Allah and His Rasul, you be with the prophets. Who else will you be with? You will be with those who speak the truth, those who never tell a lie, those who the truth has led them to Allah. Shuhada, the martyrs, those great awliya Allah and those great mujahideen, warriors of Islam who sacrificed their lives for the sake of Allah. Great role models and examples like Khalid bin Walid. Role models and examples like Sayyidina Ali bin Abi Talib. Role models and examples like Sayyidina Ka'qa bin Amr. Role models and examples like Sayyidina Sa'ad bin Abi Waqas, like Talha bin Ubaidillah, and like the great Zubayr ibn al-Awwam. People like Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, very dear companions, Sayyidina Abu Bakr, Siddiq, Umar, Sayyidina Uthman radiyallahu ta'ala anhu majma'in. These are our role models. These are who we should be looking up to. These are whose biographies we should be having on our shelves, taking them out and reading. What was so special about Sayyidina Ali? What was so special about Sayyidina Umar? What was so special about Sayyidina Uthman? What was so special about Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq? What was so special about Sayyidina Umar? The Prophet ﷺ said, لو كان بعدي نبي لكان عمر. That if there ever was a prophet after me, it would have been Umar. What's so special about Sayyidina Ali? Ali minni wa ana min Ali. Ali is from me, I am from Ali. Man kuntu mawlahu fahaza Ali mawlahu. Whoever I am is Mawla, Ali is his Mawla. What is so special about Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq? Afdalul Bashar Ba'd al-Anbiya. He's the best human after all the prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What's so special about him? He spent 3 nights in the cave. 3 nights in the cave. And the greatest journey of the Prophet ﷺ in their life from Makkah Mukarramah to Medina Munawwara, accompanied by Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, the most truthful one from the Ummah of the Prophet ﷺ, accompanied by them, Allahu Akbar, on this great journey in this night, 3 nights in the cave. And Allah Almighty talks about this in the Quran. ثاني اثنين إذ هما في الغار إذ يقول لصاحبه لا تحزن إن الله معنا. What's so special about Sayyidina Uthman? Rasulullah said, if I had 40 daughters, I would marry them to Uthman. Every single one of my daughters I'd marry to Uthman. That even the angels are shy to stand before Uthman. Even the angels have shyness in the presence of Sayyidina Uthman. Allahu Akbar. Great companions. Do we know about why they are so special? Why they are known as the Khulafa al-Rashidin? Why they are so special? These are our role models. Your name is Ali, but you don't know who Sayyidina Ali is. Your name is Abu Bakr and you don't know who Sayyidina Abu Bakr is. Your name is Umar and you don't know who Sayyidina Umar is. Your name is Uthman and you don't know who Sayyidina Uthman was. Your name is Bilal and you don't know who Sayyidina Bilal is. Your name is Hamza and you don't know who Sayyidina Hamza is. Allahu Akbar. Your name is Abbas and you don't know who Sayyidina Abbas is. You don't know who these Sahaba are. Yet you name yourself after them. Your name is Abdul Rahman and you don't know what an Abdul Rahman means. What it is, the slave of the most merciful. Allahu Akbar. You name yourself, your children after these so beautiful names. But we don't teach them to become like those names. To act like those names. It's our duty to teach them. No school is going to teach them, no uni, no university, no college, no sixth form is going to teach them what their name means. It is mine and your responsibility as Muslims that we teach our children those names. What those names mean, it's our duty. And we have to fulfill our duty as Muslims, especially living in the West. We have to fulfill this duty. Otherwise, on the day of judgment, we will be held accountable. You had everything easy, but you couldn't teach your children namaz. You couldn't teach them about Islam. You couldn't teach them what's right and wrong. Okay, your parents didn't teach you. You became old, you didn't learn yourself. Didn't you have enough intellect to understand what's right and wrong, and that you needed to learn you were Muslim. At least you knew you was a Muslim. At least you knew you had to pray, but you didn't go out and learn how to pray. This was a responsibility on yourself and you didn't do it. So this is why it's important for each and every one of us. It's necessary for us. What? That we learn about these examples, these role models. We ourselves become good role models for our children. Because the children are the next generation. If who in our generation are the good role models that tomorrow's generation will look up to? Every generation. Throughout the history of Islam, in every century, great role models have come. Great. First century, you have the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala al-Mujma'in. You have the Tabi'een, Atba'u Tabi'een. You have the Awliya, Ulama, Salihin, the great people of that first generation. You have people of the second generation, third generation. You have the first century, Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Malik. Second century, Imam Shafi, Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, Bishr Hafi, Junayd al-Baghdadi. Third century, you have great ulama. Fourth century, every century, Imam Ghazali came. Imam Sayyidina Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jilani came. Sayyidina Khwaja Mu'inuddin Chishti Ajmeri Sanjari radiyallahu anh came. Great Muhyiddin Ibn Arabi came. All these are great role models. We've never heard of their names. We don't go away and study them. But we know about the biography of Stephen Gerrard. We go and buy his book and we read about his life. We know Waynooni's biography and what's happening in his life. We're up to date with all the latest tabloid news, entertainment news. We know whose pop concert is where. We know who's playing in the World Cup today. We know England are playing tonight. Everyone knows that. We know all these things, but we don't know about our history. We don't know about our role models, who are our best examples. And it's sad. A nation that forgets its leaders, a nation that forgets the role models of that time, of that nation, a nation that forgets the great icons of that nation. What nation is that? What's left of that nation? Who doesn't remember its own leaders and icons? The one that forgets its own people, what's left of that nation? This is why it's important for us to keep reminding and holding gatherings in the name of the Sahaba, in the name of the Ahlul Bayt, in the name of Awliya, in the name of the Sufiya, in the name of the Ulama. When Imam Abu Hanifa's day comes, we should have Imam Abu Hanifa day. When Imam Ghausia Azam radiallahu anhu's day comes, we have Ghausia Azam day. We have Khwaja Ajmeri's day. We have different days. And Alhamdulillah, every month there's a special day. Every month. Some great wali of Allah Almighty has passed away. Whether it's Sha'ban, whether it's Ramadan, whether it's Shawwal, whether it's Zulqa'dah, Zulhijjah, whether it's Muharram, Safar, Rabiul Awwal, Rabiul Thani, whether it's Jamad al-Ula, Jamad al-Ukhra, Rajab. Every single month, one, if not more, great men and women of Allah Almighty have come into this world or left this world. And it's our duty now that we regularly host gatherings in the name of these people, and we look at ways to invite youth in to learn about these people and to present them as role models for these people. That's our duty. It's a responsibility upon us that we, after studying the importance of having role models, that we have a talk on the Prophet ﷺ. We have a talk on Sayyidina Adam alayhi salam. We have a talk on Sayyidina Ismail alayhi salam, Ibrahim alayhi salam. We talk about Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam. We talk about Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam. We talk about their life, how they lived their life, and then the lessons that we learn from their life. So that that individual, we fall in love with him, and then he becomes our role model. And then we always say, oh Allah, let me see this individual in my life. When you love the Prophet ﷺ and you begin to follow him, what's a regular dua that a lover makes? Oh Allah, grant me the didar of the Prophet ﷺ. Oh Allah, let me see Rasulullah ﷺ. Let me have the vision of the Prophet ﷺ, the blessed vision that they come into my dreams. And they bless my dream. They bless my life by unveiling their beauty before us. When you love someone, then you always want to see them. We need to fall in love with the people of Allah, to always want to see the people of Allah, to always want to follow the people of Allah. That's important for us. And in order to do that, we need to host gatherings. These are solutions, these are ways. We should have a regular gathering in this masjid. Not only this masjid, throughout the country, where we talk about specific awliyaullah, or we talk about specific ulama, special people that have passed away in that month. Once a month you should call a scholar in and say, today we're going to talk about so and so body. And you should make posters, get them out, get the word out, so youngsters come in and say, yeah man, I want to go and learn about Junaid al-Baghdadi. Who is Junaid? Radiyallahu anhu. Who is Bishr Hafi? Who is Imam Ghazali? Who is Fakhruddin Razi? Who is the great Salahuddin al-Ayubi? Who is Nuruddin Zangi? Who is the great conquerors of Islam and the great warriors of Islam like Khalid bin Walid? Who is Abu Dujana? When are we going to learn? Until we don't represent, until we don't present the lives of the awliyaullah and the lives of the scholars, then how are the youngsters going to have role models? All the time they're on the iPhone. On the iPhone they see everything but the role models of Islam. All the time they're on the computer, they're on TV. What do they see? They see musicians, MTV, they watch TV. That's it, that's all they see. So how are they going to get role models? Either we become role models ourselves that has such an influence in the life of our coming generations that they begin to follow us, who we in return are following the awliya, ulama and the prophets of Allah Almighty and in their footpath, in their way and following in their footsteps. Or we ourselves as masajid, we host gatherings to invite young people in. And say, come, a scholar is coming to teach you today about one great man of Allah. And you come and you learn. You learn about that person's life. When he was born, when he passed away, what he achieved, what difficulties he went through. You study his entire life. Once you've studied his entire life, then at the end you say, okay, these are the lessons that we learn from this man's life. This is what we learn. Go away now and study about this man's life. Study more. Make dua that we get to follow in the footsteps of that great man of Allah. That's why we need role models. It's important. Muslims need Muslim role models. We need role models of the best example, and that is the Prophet ﷺ's example. لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ لِمَنْ كَانَ يَرْجُو اللَّهَ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرَ وَذَكَرَ اللَّهَ كَثِيرًا. And it's important for us that we, in hope of meeting Allah and in hope of being present on the Day of Judgment, we follow the best role model, which is the Prophet ﷺ. We follow in the footsteps of Rasulullah ﷺ. We do what Rasulullah ﷺ did. We act and behave and follow the sunnah and the traditions of the Prophet ﷺ. We don't follow no other tradition. There's no tradition better than the tradition of Rasulullah ﷺ. For that reason we need to study that tradition. Tradition and the traditional way. The traditional way of the scholars that have come, that continue the tradition all the way down to today. It's important for us to know our history. Rasulullah ﷺ said, and I finish on this hadith, a very important hadith. الرجل على دين خليله فلينظر أحدكم من يخالف. The Prophet ﷺ said, a person, الرجل على دين خليله. A person is on the deen, on the way of his friend. فلينظر أحدكم من يخالف. Be very careful. Be very, very careful in who you choose as your friend. Sometimes we are influenced by our friends to follow certain people, certain ways, certain direction we go. If you have good friends, then you will follow in the direction of the good role models, the good people. You have bad friends, then you'll go in the bad direction. Always choose people who will be good, whose role models are the people of Islam, the men of Islam. If you have friends whose role models are the people of Islam, the men of Islam, the great Sahaba, awliyaullah, the great friends of Allah, the great pious men, then their effect will rub off onto you. And if you have friends who dress like gangsters, talk like gangsters, walk like plastic gangsters, and they do all of these things, then you will see at the end, you will eventually won't realize, you'll start behaving like them as well. You'll start walking like them as well, talking like them as well. Before you know it, you'll become one of them as well. And you'll say, man, a few years back we heard Imam Sahib say this speech and today look where we are. We didn't take heed. This is why the youngsters who are sat here find good role models, good people to follow. I'm not saying don't follow football, cricket. These aren't the things that we should worship and follow such that it becomes worship and necessary for us. First on your deen, these important things, fardul ayn, which is necessary, then everything else can come. But first, you have to have a seerah of the Prophet ﷺ in a book on the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ in your house. Get the book of the Prophet ﷺ, see that in your house and study it, read it. If you don't understand, come and ask the scholars. Ask me and we will tell you. This is what it means, this is what it means. And study, study. The life of Rasulullah ﷺ, and you will see the change. Change will begin to come as well. This is very important for us to understand. It's very important for us to act upon as well. I've been talking to myself most of this time here, and unfortunately you've been sat in front of me listening. But I hope that you've also taken heed to what I have had to say. I make dua that Allah Almighty accepts what I've said and forgives me if I've said anything wrong. Wrong is from me, good is from Allah and His Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The du'as of my parents, my mother and father, and my teachers. I make dua that Allah blesses each and every one of us and gives us tawfiq to follow in the footsteps of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and in the footsteps of the companions and the Sahaba and the Sahabiyat and the Tabi'een and Tabi'een and the footsteps of the great ulama al-salihin, al-ameen, the great scholars that have come in the past. Make dua that Allah forgives us for our sins. وأقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله.